Now, let's introduce our Sheriff's Captain, Roosevelt Johnson, who's going to come up and tell us all that we ever wanted to know about the Sheriff's Department. Roosevelt, would you, well, let's give Roosevelt a big hand.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for having me here. Good evening to all of you. I'm Captain Roosevelt Johnson, the captain of Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and speak to you tonight. I was asked to speak briefly about the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station and some of the things you can expect from my command, and also I'll take an opportunity to answer any questions that you have about anything that's going on here for the Santa Clarita Valley. Just to give you a little bit of background on me, I've been on the Sheriff's Department for 24 years. Came on the Sheriff's Department after doing 4 years, serving 4 years in the United States Navy. So it was an absolute pleasure when I was asked to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance, because I do believe in that great flag here, and that's why I do the job that I do today. I came on the Sheriff's Department, as I said, after doing that time in the Navy. Had the opportunity to test for, I was living in San Diego at the time, test for San Diego Police Department and the LA County Sheriffs, got hired by both departments and decided to move up here to Los Angeles because the pay was about $10,000 a year more starting. So it was a business decision, but probably one of the best decisions that I actually made. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time here working with the Sheriff's Department. And all the things that I've done in my career have actually led to me being here before you to be the captain of this station. I can say that I've had a pretty balanced career in my time on the Sheriff's Department. I've worked a significant amount of time in the major divisions on the department, which is custody division, and as well as training. I worked 5.5 years at the academy staff training new recruits. Started off up here at the North Academy at College of the Canyons, and ended up going and working at our main academy in Whittier before being promoted to sergeant. I've worked patrol assignments at 5 different patrol stations. I started off patrol working in Linwood, working at Century Sheriff Station. I've also worked, when I worked West Hollywood Station as a deputy, promoted to sergeant, and went to Lenox Station in the Vermont and the Lenox Sheriff's area, Lawndale. From there, as a lieutenant, I went to Altadena Station, and now I'm proud to say that I'm working here and commanding the troops here at the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station. Santa Clarita Valley is my home. It's been my home for the past 24 years. I'm happy to say that I've raised my family here. My wife, my lovely wife, I've met her in the academy. She's on the Sheriff's Department as well, so it's a family thing for us here in law enforcement. I've raised my kid in this community. We have one son who's gone through the school system here, so I've seen this community grow. I've moved out here in 1991 and seen this community grow significantly. I believe in this community. I actually love this community, love the area, and the relative safety that we are afforded while raising our families here in this community, and operating businesses, etc. here. The Santa Clarita Valley has consistently been ranked one of the safest, top 10 safest cities in the nation by population of 100,000 residents or more. And it's my intent to make sure that it remains that way, especially on my watch. The Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station policing area consists of more than 660 square miles. We police the valley with some 244 sworn and professional staff personnel. Additionally, there are a significant number of volunteers, reserves, and other countless members that put in countless hours to make sure that this community is safe. Valley-wide, crime is down 4.9% in Part 1 crimes, and the Part 1 crimes we're talking about are like aggravated assaults, homicide, theft, robbery. All of those crimes are Part 1 crimes that are reported to the FBI and tracked by all major law enforcement officers in all cities across this country. The reason I can say that we have such a low crime rate here is basically a combination of proactive police work, prevention measures, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute, and a bunch of intervention measures that we've taken here in the community. While there are many programs that are actually currently in place that have played a significant role in keeping the crime rates low here in the community, your role as a community and partnering with your Sheriff's Department is critical to our collective success. That's why within the first several months of arriving here at the station, I held what was called Coffee with the Captains at 8 different coffee locations throughout the community. I wanted to meet and engage the community by listening to your concerns. The majority of the concerns focused here on the community focus on quality of life issues such as vehicle speeding in neighborhoods and noise from parties. There were some concerns about property crimes and drug use, and these issues are all being addressed. Make no mistake about it, as I said before, I do believe in proactive police work. The personnel assigned to Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station will be actively involved in preventing crime from occurring and arresting those who commit crimes. I envision using a lot more technology here as we do our job here to help us solve crimes. There are things that are coming out on the Sheriff's Department, like at the body-worn cameras. There's technology that's in the cars right now that's far more significant than what we had just a few years ago. And all of those things will help us to keep the crime rates low here in the community. The other part, though, that's really significant as well is, as I said, the engagement piece. Where I do believe that we want to and we need to engage our youth here in the community through youth advisory committees, working with the high school children to discuss some of the issues facing our youth here in the community, and developing a coalition of retail establishments where we talk to and make sure that the loss prevention professionals are all working together to keep some of the crime, reduce the crime here and shrinkage from theft in our businesses. We just had a community academy that graduated, and for those of you that don't know what that is, Community Academy is actually a 6 to 8 week program that meets once a week for about 2 hours on one given night a week, and we basically educate members of the community about what the Sheriff's Department has to offer. Also engage the community members that are involved in the program, take them on tours of the jails, and it's my intent as well in future academies to make sure that we put the folks in the community here through shooting simulators, where we basically allow them to get engaged in a situation where they have to make a split-second decision, so they'll really understand and comprehend some of the things that we go through in law enforcement. That program also includes having members go on ride-alongs with the deputies so that they can see firsthand some of the things that the deputies are actually dealing with that are out in the community. And all of these things are designed to make sure that we're engaging the community, that we're educating the community about what we do, and that we're making sure that we're being transparent along the way and sharing some of the things that we do as an organization. I'm going to basically tell you that I'd like to make sure that we continue the partnerships that we've already started. I've been here at Santa Clarita Valley Station. Next month we'll make 1 year, and it's gone by very, very quickly. I'm extremely excited to be here. I know that there are a bunch of challenges that lay ahead of us, especially with some of the things that have actually recently occurred with the Proposition 47, the passage of some laws that happened in November that reduces a lot of the crimes, some of the crimes that we used to classify as felonies to misdemeanor crimes, and how that's going to impact us as a law enforcement agency. We really don't fully have comprehension of that yet because it just passed just a couple months ago. But I'm committed to working with all of the partners here in this community to make sure that we're engaging and we're doing the things that make this community and continue to make it a safe place. I want to tell you just a couple of quick things. Some of the things that do come up and some of the questions come up, they ask about response times here and what the response times are as it relates to deputies getting to calls for service. The response times here in Santa Clarita, we have standards that we set. We have what's called emergency calls, and those are the calls that a baby not breathing or something that's really urgent, where we basically have units responding code 3 with the lights and siren going to get to the calls. Those calls, we try and get to those calls in less than 10 minutes. And I can tell you right now that our emergency response time here in the Santa Clarita Valley, in the city of Santa Clarita, is actually 5.4 minutes takes us to get to an emergency call. Considering the amount of traffic and the things that we have to deal with in the city, I think that's a fantastic thing. Our target goal for priority calls, and those are calls like now calls where you have a robbery in progress or something like that, is to get to those calls in 20 minutes or less. And obviously it's based on where the units are in the city when the call comes out. Our response time to those calls here in the city of Santa Clarita is 19 minutes on average. So sometimes they're a lot faster, sometimes they're a little slower, but the average time is 19 minutes. Routine calls are calls where you call and you say you had a burglary that occurred sometime over the weekend or something like that. That call is what's called a routine call because it's lower on the priority. If a baby's not breathing or a robbery is occurring or something like that, we have to respond to those calls and get there a lot quicker. The target on those crimes are actually 60 minutes or less. I can tell you that the response time on the routine calls here in the city of Santa Clarita are 59.5 minutes. So we're right on target with meeting all the goals with all of those calls. Obviously, it depends on what's going on, what type of traffic that we're having. We've responded to, in 2014, we responded to over 53,000 calls for service here in the Santa Clarita Valley. So if you can imagine, that's quite a task getting to and handling all of those calls for service, but we're doing our very, very best to make sure that we do a fantastic job on that. As far as education is concerned, education is a big deal of mine. I went to school. I have a bachelor's degree in education, and I have a master's degree in criminal justice. I've been not only have been working for the Sheriff's Department for the last 24 years, but for the last 10 years, I've actually been teaching part-time as an adjunct professor for a national university on the graduate level as well. So I'm fully aware of the educational component here and the need to make sure that that's a very important part of what we do as an organization. So we are going to continue our focus to make sure that we're educating the community and the kids in the community about drugs and the dangers of drugs. One of the things that I garnered from the kids that I attended at the Youth Academy, which was a coalition of all the kids from all the local high schools out here in Santa Clarita, was that they are requesting a need, and they're requesting that we as a department educate them as well on the dangers of social media. So we're working very closely and putting together classes on that as well, and our goal is to try and make sure that we're educating them and the parents about the dangers of it, because we've had some instances out here where kids were posting things on social media, and a couple kids have actually been arrested for some of those things, and I don't think they understood the gravity of their actions. So it's things like that that we're going to continue to do. We do have we're involved with intervention programs here in the Valley. We do have a very active VITA program, which is Vital Intervention and Directional Alternatives. It's based on kids between the ages of 11 and 17. If a kid is, we see that a kid is actually heading in the wrong direction, they're skipping school, they're using drugs, they're actually experiencing a problem with alcohol, we can actually refer those kids to this program. It's a 12 to 14-week program where it's sort of like a boot camp for the kids. And if they're successful in graduating from this program, it normally erases that particular criminal activity from their past. And so it's really a great program that's been around for quite a few years. It's been very successful, and a lot of agencies across the country are emulating that particular program because of the success in it. Afterwards, the kids graduate. We've had some really good success stories out here in the Santa Clarita Valley, and I can tell you that having gone to the most recent graduation for that, the Santa Clarita Valley Station won the trophy in the VITA games. Their kids were some of the best kids in that program. So we look forward to those programs and what they offer. And it's really, really not about arresting our way out of this problem. The LA County Sheriff's Department's average daily inmate population is 17,000 inmates in the custody at any given time. If you compare that population right there, if it was a if it was a prison population, we'd actually be ranked the fourth largest prison in the United States. Okay, we are under the impression, and we know that we cannot arrest our way out of this problem. So it's really going to be critical that we are all collectively working together to make sure that we educate the community, that we intervene in the lives of kids at the earliest stage possible, and make sure that we keep them out of trouble. At this time, I'd like to entertain any questions that you guys have for me and about anything that you have about anything going on here in Canyon Country or in the Santa Clarita.
Hi. First of all, I was at the Community Academy, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. I mean, it was awesome to see what was going on at our local station and what you guys do, and I want to thank you. So that's the first thing. I have two questions. The first one is, what is our staffing in our community at the local schools of sheriff deputies? And the other one is, how would I put it? Coverage of the unincorporated areas. Because if you were to look at a map with 5 being one part of the V and the 14 being the other part,
Yes.
I learned that at the point that I was...
Okay. I'll answer both the questions. Obviously, that's some misinformation that you have in terms of the number of units that are actually out patrolling the area. On any given shift, we have anywhere between 14 to 20 patrol units that are patrolling the entire area in Santa Clarita Valley. In the unincorporated area, I can tell you that there are at least 6 or 7 cars that are out in the unincorporated area. But you have to understand the unincorporated area is the largest geographical area here. The city of Santa Clarita is about 62 square miles. The rest of that 650 square miles that we talked about is really the unincorporated area. So the area stretches all the way up to the Neenack, Gorman area, and all the way down to, the 514, and you're talking about the old road, and then some of the unincorporated areas off of Via Princesa, Sand Canyon. It's a pretty vast area. Most people are really concerned about calls for service, but in reality, calls are answered, and it's the closest unit to the call. So whoever's closest to the call is going to get dispatched the call to get to it. You asked a question about how many personnel, I think it was, that are patrolling here. We have assigned to the station about 244 personnel.
Directly or in the schools?
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. The schools. As far as the schools, we contract with the Hart Unified School District to provide school resource officers at our schools, and we have 6 deputies that are assigned to the schools. Most of the time they spend at the high schools, but they are also responsible for, and they go to the elementaries and the middle schools.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you give us some information on the new substation that's going to be in Canyon Country, when it's going to be updated, and where it is, and how it's going to be staffed?
You know what, I really can't give you that information, but I can tell you that we are in negotiations for building 2 stations out here in the Santa Clarita Valley. Everyone knows that this valley, if you look at the Santa Clarita Valley area plan, that plan calls for this valley to, the population to significantly increase out here. We know that. Both the 5th District from the Supervisor Antonivich's office knows that, and the City of Santa Clarita and their staff know that. So we've been in discussions with all entities, and we're continuing discussions to make sure that we get the facilities built that we need to make sure that we have the appropriate level of policing service out here in the valley. But I can't really disclose to you at this particular time any locations or anything like that, but know that we're talking about it, and I think we're going to be moving forward relatively quickly.
But I wanted to ask you a question about the other day. You had a response to the mall where there were a few kids kind of
Sure.
appearing to break into a car.
Mm-hmm.
Turned out it was their own car that they had somehow got locked out of. And I noticed there was a lot of conversation about how they were approached with guns pointed at them.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know about your policies on approaching anyone with a gun drawn, and if that was if that was procedure, or what your thoughts on that were.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. Obviously, in light of all the things that are going on, these type of questions are coming up, and law enforcement tactics across the country are being analyzed and critiqued, Monday morning quarterbacked all day, every day. We expect that. We understand that. This is a tough job that we do, but we're being transparent, and we're being, we're out there, and we're going to be critiqued on those things. I can tell you that having worked the training bureau with the Sheriff's Department for 5.5 years, the deputies acted according to the way we train, okay? We had a call for service, and that call for service was that someone was probably stealing a car. That's a felony. It's a felony crime. And when we respond to felonies in progress, our tactics are what they are. And those tactics are, if we have a felony traffic stop, just like we do a felony traffic stop, guns are drawn because it's a potential felony. At the end of the day, it turned out that was not the case, and it appeared that the kids were having trouble with the keys, getting in the car. But understand, we got a call for service. That call came in because community members thought that the kids were actually, or the individuals were trying to steal the car. They didn't know it was kids in the car. Even if they knew it was kids in the car, it really wouldn't make a difference as far as our tactics are concerned, because the reality of it is it's a felony in progress. That's the type of crime it's classified as far as we're concerned, and our training and tactics dictate a certain protocol when handling those types of calls. But as I said, we welcome the scrutiny with anything that we do. We're a very transparent organization, and we do make mistakes on occasion. When we do make those mistakes, we're going to fess up to those mistakes and make sure that we don't do it again. But I welcome the scrutiny that comes with that. I saw that. I saw all the comments that were in the paper as a result of that particular action. But the deputies did exactly the way they're trained, and they did exactly what I would expect them to do.
I have just a quick question regarding the homeless camps in the river wash. Has that been taken care of at all?
I can't say it's been taken care of, but I can tell you that we're actively working on that. As a matter of fact, I had a meeting with a bunch of entities today, and you'll be pleased. Just know you'll be pleased, because we're getting ready to take some action on that, and it'll be pretty significant action. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Stacy Fortner, and I met with you at the Domestic Violence Center with a friend of mine at the time, and I had told you at the time that I was taking very good notes and that I would be holding you accountable to some of the promises that you made. At that time, you gave us a timeline of when she could expect responses about some identity theft things that were going on with her. The timeline seemed to have been abandoned, and the person that you had delegated to told her the exact same thing that they had told her before you had got involved. And I'm just wondering what people in this valley can do when it comes to...
Thank you for bringing that forward, and I can tell you that I do remember, obviously, meeting with you, and I'm very familiar with the case that you're talking about. I take all of those things very, very seriously, and I can tell you for a fact that I've reviewed that case myself personally, talked to the detective. It wasn't just the detective that actually handled the case. It was actually the Detective Bureau Lieutenant who's in charge of the sergeants and the detectives that are back there. Without getting into the specifics of the case, because it would be inappropriate to do that, because you're not necessarily the victim yourself, I can tell you that we've done everything that we could do on that particular case. And I've read the case myself, front to back, all the reports. We've done everything that we could do. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not what the person wants to hear. But the reality of it is, I look at all of the cases, and my job is to make sure that you're getting the service that you deserve here in this valley, okay? everything that happens here in this valley, all the actions of the personnel, the buck stops with me. So I can tell you that when that paperwork and those things flow across my desk, if there's something that needs to be addressed, something that we're not doing, that we should be doing, I'm going to hold my personnel accountable. You can best believe that. If it's a personnel matter or something that results into some type of investigation, I can't go into details about that by law and tell you exactly what happened, but you need to rest assured that I'm doing my job and that I'm going to hold them accountable. And you're going to get the service that you deserve. I took the time out of my day to go there, and I promise to everyone in this community, if you call and you need me to go someplace, you need me to listen, you need me to look into something, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Okay? As I said, we do make mistakes, and when we do, I will admit that we've made a mistake, and we're going to try and clean it up, and we're going to make sure we do it better. But in the case that you're talking about there, we've done everything that we needed to do in that case, presented that case to the district attorney. Once we do certain things like that, it's out of our hands. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Without getting into what happened with the Prop 47, how has it affected you and your staff when you arrest someone today as opposed to before Prop 47 passed?
Okay.
Any specifics?
Sure.
Drug bust, cocaine, marijuana?
Yeah, drugs is one of those crimes. Actually, most of this simple possession, crime is simple possession of anything like methamphetamine, heroin. All of those crimes were actually felonies prior to Proposition 47 going into place, which meant that you basically, any felony, we take the person to jail, and they're pretty much going to stay in jail. They go and get arraigned. Now that that crime has actually been reduced to a misdemeanor, we're still taking people to jail for those particular crimes because it's still against the law to actually be in possession of methamphetamine and heroin. However, once that person is taken to jail, they're actually processed, fingerprinted, all the paperwork's processed, and then they're released on a notice to appear, which is a citation. So that's the difference in that particular crime. There's also another crime, the shoplifting crime of petty theft with a prior, which traditionally there was a crime related to that, and it was a felony crime. They've come up with a new penal code section of 459.5, which is basically a misdemeanor shoplifting. If the value does not exceed the $950 threshold, it's a misdemeanor crime. So we'll still arrest that person. We'll process them, as I said, and then they'll get released on a citation. But they're still being arrested. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.